Will you be watching the new Harry Potter show? I won't be, but I want to get other opinions. Today we're chatting with Bayleigh Ackman about Harry Potter, whether or not we as a community should watch the new show, the things we'd actually like to support about the Harry Potter universe, and the ethical knots that we have to try to unravel when we have to separate an artist from their work in order to enjoy it.
Hey Bayleigh, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. So I think we have been in conversation for all of 5 minutes, which is very exciting. And I kind of sped up the small talk portion because today we're going to be talking about Harry Potter, whether or not we should be watching the new show in particular, and then probably like a larger conversation about why we're even asking the question, you know? But I have some get to know you Harry Potter questions.
Yes, okay, I'm ready.
Okay. How big, on scale of 1 to 10, how big a fan of Harry Potter were you before you found out about JK's opinions versus after?
Yeah, I would say like a solid, probably 8. Like I have very fond memories of, standing in line at midnight at Barnes and Noble and like doing the whole thing for most of that entire book series. So,
Yeah.
it was pretty involved. I would say pretty involved fandom.
I also would sit in line, but my lines are a lot shorter. I found you could go to like a grocery store at midnight, like a 24-hour grocery store, and they would stock the books because I was really more into like the getting the book and going to read.
And like getting out there. Yeah. Fair. I grew up in a very small town in Wisconsin, so I didn't really have, I had to drive some to even get to Barnes and Noble. So I think it was like a full experience.
But it was worth it. It was worth the drive, you know?
I think so.
Okay, so my next question was going to be a book fan or a movie fan. You were in there for the books.
I do really enjoy the movies, though.
Oh, you do? Okay, so both.
I do. Yes, I will say both. I think books first. If I actually went, I've gone a long time of like getting into the movies again, going out of them. That is ebbed and flowed throughout the years, but I would definitely say books, subsequent movies, on and off.
Okay, I see you've got a few tattoos. Do you have any Harry Potter tattoos?
I do not.
Okay, I have a friend who does, so I wasn't sure. A lot of people have like that Horcrux.
I don't have a lot of, maybe knock on wood, I don't have a lot of like pop culture references.
Okay.
They're all pretty out there. I'll say that. Not all
Fair
of them
enough.
have meaning. It would be
met you. No big deal.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think your house would be if we were to put the sorting hat on your head?
I think it would be Slytherin.
Really?
I do.
Okay.
I think I mean, I don't know if we should get into all the reasons why, but I'm fairly certain that would be the house.
Okay, the depths that we plumb today about your character will be up to you. But it's telling that that's the house that you chose.
Fair. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of qualities that are overlooked that are positive in that house.
Sure.
But I don't think the other ones really match my overall personality.
Well, who is your favorite character in the series?
I think that's a tough one. I think it changes depending on which book I recently read or listened to. I'm a fan of the audiobooks as well. But I think if I were looking at the entire end to end, I'd probably say Snape, because I think it's a good character arc and like a nice flow to the story. I think there are other characters that are like less developed for sure.
Sure. Okay. Snape, Slytherin. I'm sensing some things.
There's a trend. Yeah.
Well, who's your least favorite character or your least favorite moment from either the books or the series?
Least favorite character. I think this is hard. I don't know if I've given much thought to that before.
Okay. Thank you. I thought
I
it was a
think that
very good question.
yeah, it is. It is. I think as a whole, while I like her as a character and I understand her place and need in the stories, I think I get annoyed the most by Luna Lovegood, which is like definitely not an opinion that most people share.
Sure,
But
sure.
I find myself like consistently, yeah, I think annoyed is the right word. I don't know if I like dislike anyone in full,
Yeah.
but
I when I still participated in the community, I was very Gryffindor driven, I would
mhm,
say. I had a like a scarf with the
cute.
colors. Like I loved that
Yeah.
maroon and gold situation. Um, and I was also a book fan more than a movie fan. And I do think that Luna Lovegood is more interesting in the books than in
That's
the movie series.
that's true. I think the movies um, kind of turn her into a bit of a cliche.
Yeah, I agree with that. And this whole exchange, this whole BuzzFeed quiz that we just had, is is part of why I'm so upset with the author of this series because it's so you can so quickly bond and relate with someone over the
Yeah.
story that she wrote. Like just a couple of questions and like you know this person. You might have some follow-up questions about why they're in Slytherin, you know?
But like most people have seen it and it's a big part of culture. You can draw
Yeah.
conclusions, like you said. Um, I think as it pertains to the topic at hand, I get why a lot of people walked away from Harry Potter after Rowling's views became more visible, and I
Well,
think that reaction makes sense to me. If we may, I think it
sure.
would make more sense for me to go through books and then we move on to maybe the new series.
Okay.
But I think I have a little bit more nuanced view on it. So um, part of why I connected to Harry Potter was it actually gave me a language for I think being transgender. So like when I've in hindsight, and especially in preparing for today, as I was looking back, so much of what drew me into the story was about transformation. So you have things like
Ah,
Polyjuice Potion and Tonks being able to like change her body, and the idea that maybe identity isn't fixed all of the time. Um, and that world I think gave me an image and starting like a language that I didn't have yet and for imagining. And so it
yeah.
wasn't, I think the books for me weren't so much just media, but um, something that gave me like a beginning of a language to understand myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that it
Uh,
does make sense and that does create a little bit of a difference in our experience because um JK's problematic business is
mhm.
really exclusively targeted towards I would say trans people, but trans women. Very,
Yes.
very much targeted towards trans women in the guise of defending like the rights of cisgender women. But as an LGB ally, question mark, in quotes, you know, after the movies and everything's come out, now Dumbledore is gay. Um, Now we've got diversity in the casting with the play and in the
Hmm.
casting of the new show. And so there's just a lot I would like, you know,
Right.
but I didn't have that experience reading and watching the movies initially because I like it just wasn't there. And so it does make a lot more sense that you, Bayleigh, got more out of the text, out of the subtext of the text.
Well, and I right. I think we can get to this in a minute, but I don't I won't be watching the new show, but there's something specifically about the story. Um, like I think something we maybe don't talk about enough with books in general is that once a story's out in the world, does it fully belong to the author?
Mm-hmm.
So I would argue that it belongs to the people who needed it and like who how they understood it, how they used it, maybe for my own self, how I fit it into my life. And so I personally don't think people can take that away from me after the fact, which is why I still read the books and enjoy them. I get why people would want to make the other another like decision for themselves, but you make a really good point and about like the characters now being gay and things like that. There is actually like a long history of queer and trans people rewriting Harry Potter for themselves. So there's a decent amount of fan fiction and headcanons and like reinterpretations of the novel that I really enjoy in online spaces. So people have rewritten the book to be more inclusive, more, I guess, reflective of their lives in actual times. So there's a lot of communities where characters are reimagined and explore gender in ways that the original text never did, which I think is, if you don't want to, you still want Harry Potter in your life, but you don't necessarily want to read Rowling's version of that, you can definitely find it and enjoy it in a way that's a lot more queer.
Oh, that's a great option that I hadn't considered because I'm such an all or nothing person.
I'm always going to ride that gray area, as you'll see by my many opinions here.
Yeah, but I'm like, oh, you're hitting on my sister. Well, you're gone. Not hitting on, not hitting on in the way I would typically use it. But I'm saying, you're sending mean tweets about my sister. You're lobbying against my sister or my brother, my sibling. You know, I'm not reading your books. I'm not watching your movies. And I don't really get into the nuance of like, well, where could I find the same satisfaction? Like, where could I, like, how, why don't I just torrent the movies, you know, or the books or what have you? You can still enjoy it without monetarily empowering the artist. Not that this artist is ever going to notice that I'm not giving her $1.
Exactly. I think, and I'm not going to pretend that my choice to still enjoy it is like perfectly ethical, right? Because I don't think that exists. But it's more about kind of navigating harm as thoughtfully as I can. So you could take that argument of you're still financially supporting harm, but I think there are different ways that people can engage. I also think full boycotts sometimes, maybe not in the way of Harry Potter, but they require access and consistency that not everyone has. I think you could boycott Harry Potter like decently fine if you wanted to, but there's definitely not one correct answer. The other piece that I think I've heard this from some trans women as well, so I can't fully claim this idea as my own. I do have some friends that I've talked to this about, but there is a moment where, well, right now is a moment where trans people are being targeted politically, socially, culturally, and there's a lot of messaging that we should be invisible or quiet or maybe like constantly defending our existence, some such otherwise. So I think that choosing joy, especially visible, unapologetic joy, is not passive. So even if that joy lives in maybe reading Harry Potter novels, it's still a refusal in some way. Like you don't get to define my entire experience as a struggle. You don't get to take away the things from me that made me happy at one time or maybe now. So I think there's also an argument to be had of like joy as a form of resistance.
I appreciate that. I love I'm gonna do what I want attitude.
And I think as a trans person, especially, like we're told so many times and in so many ways of all the things that we shouldn't be doing or that people don't want us to do, that just living that way of I'm going to do what I want is radical. It shouldn't be. It should be, but like that act of like reclaimed free will is, and joy doing it, I think is something that I respect if people want to act that way around Harry Potter.
Okay. You're changing my mind a little bit as we share, and I'm like, okay. If people want to make their own decisions, I can get down with that. Like that is a value I hold. I support that. I would probably challenge them to support their decision in some kind of a conversation. Like if I were to see one of my siblings watching the new Harry Potter show, I'd be like, why are you watching that?
Right. Well, and I think you make a really good point. Boycotts are powerful, but I think it becomes about navigating trade-offs. So
sure.
if with the new show, I'm not going to be watching that, but it's because I've chosen to hang on to the piece that has already happened, that I already have a relationship with. I'm not going to be building new relationships. So that's kind of the trade-off that I've made. Like I said, not perfectly ethical in any way, but I think that's the kind of the conversation that people need to have when they're deciding to continue, now that we have seen such visible hate come from this author.
Is the trade-off made easier because this is a retelling of the same story instead of, some new canon, let's say?
I don't think so, because I don't have a relationship with a retelling still.
Yeah, it's fair, because I'm like, okay, you want to watch Harry Potter, you don't have to watch the new one. I say let Warner Brothers lose money. That's
right.
That's my opinion. I hope it flops. I hope the actors are well supported. I hope.
Right. There's a lot of things we want to go well still.
But... Yeah. I want every Black actor to win an Emmy, and I want the show to tank. I don't see a contradiction. But I would also be like, well, why don't you get the DVDs from the library or something?
Exactly.
Like, why do you have to engage in this media, in the newness of it, that's like perpetuating this art? Now, maybe the art is worth perpetuating. I think it, like you mentioned, it's brought a lot of comfort to a lot of people. Yours is just one story out of many. It would be interesting to see if that remains, like the things that you liked about the story remain in the retelling.
I think I have a lot of nostalgia attached to the original story. So I think that makes it also easier for me to not care about the new one.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not interested in having a new experience with JK. Like, I'll preserve the experiences that I've already had, that I like have been positive ones, but I'm not interested in creating a new one.
Well,
if I want a new experience, I'll go to those forums and I'll read like trans authors reimagining the story versus having her version of it.
100%
which you
agree.
Absolutely should do. There are some good ones out there. There are some smutty ones, so like mind your way around. But there are some that are not.
Well, I think about like the marketing machine that is pushing Harry Potter, which is probably the reason we're not seeing JK out doing interviews and the like.
I think she'd be eaten alive.
Yeah, she's so deeply problematic. She's really a drag on the brand. Like, should the brand like exist without her? Like, if someone were to buy her out of her stake in Harry Potter, would you then return to the media?
I think that would depend on who bought it, what the circumstances were, and how it's presented moving forward. I think I would need to see the brand. If I were going to like dive back into new Harry Potter material, I would need to see the brand like renounce those views.
No? Okay. Ben and Jerry's. Maybe.
Right. Exactly. I think that's there's definitely some conditional logic there.
Yeah. Well, I think it's kind of returning to the question of the artist and their attachment to the work. I think it's telling how many kind of like leaps and tumbling we have to do in order to preserve the nostalgia that we really appreciate, while basically navigating the capitalistic urge to recreate stories over and over and over again to like ensnare our children for another generation so that they will, they'll go to Universal
enjoy the same
Studios and they'll
things we
buy the
did.
scarves and they'll have little wands.
I will say Universal is fun though.
Is that okay? Oh, you did go there. I should have asked that in my BuzzFeed questions.
I have been there, yes.
Mm-hmm. Did you dress up?
No.
Okay.
Well, I did buy from an Etsy seller it's a shirt that has Harry Potter and Voldemort like yearbook photos like being like but I did not buy Warner Brother Harry Potter merch. So yeah.
Did they have little yearbook quotes beneath their photos?
They didn't. That would have been good.
That would have been good.
I'll pen her.
Thank you. Real missed opportunity. But when it comes to the art versus the artist, I have more of a struggle than most, I think, in part because I'm the executive director of an arts organization in my day job. And so I'm like, well, I know the artist. Yeah. Typically, like if I'm going to have my people like collab with an artist, I'm like, well, who are they? Let me know the who of them rather than just their work. And so I am a little more rigid in my thoughts on the art versus the artist. And I think we have so many options, like to your point on the queer media, the media that's available online. We have so many options that like, why do we even need to worry about the people that make us feel icky? I'm like, I'll just read something else.
I think that gets hard when we start to consider what other things we should be boycotting or like not taking. Is it just for art or do we go into corporations? And I think that can be a very overwhelming kind of where do I draw the line for people? Because if I tried to boycott every piece of media or like corporation or store that was connected to harmful politics, I might not be able to afford it, right? Like, or at least there would be like huge shifts in my daily life. So I think that can be really difficult to like, are we just going to pick artists? Are we going to pick, I think some people need to pick some of everything, like, but I think that can be an overwhelming decision for some.
I do think that we have to act within like our capacity to act. Like, do not derail your life boycotting people who don't like you. If you can, like if I can boycott, I will. Because I spent a lot of money, Bayleigh. I spent a lot of money. I'm like, oh, you want to like come after me? Anyone that looks like me? Anyone who has like a husband like I do? Okay, well, big mistake. I will go somewhere else. It's totally fine.
Right.
Or I will reduce my spending at a retail outlet and only go when I need to go. Right. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing situation for me specifically. But I will turn my spigot off.
I will to what's reasonable, I think. Like, yeah, I agree.
And I think to the point of me acting as the director of an organization, like it's other people's money that I'm directing. And so it's not just my personal bank account. And so it really gets magnified once you get into a position where, you've got like purchasing authority. And I think those are the kinds of people, I think I'm the kind of people that like protesters are targeting when they're like, you should boycott, you should divest, you should look at where your money is and where it's going. And like, try to turn things around as you can. I have not gotten to the level of being like an activist investor yet.
So on our way.
I mean, I have dreams.
Yeah, of course. I think I do think you make an important point that you have a bit of a greater responsibility there. I think when it comes to individual people, like we need to be careful that like we don't, especially I think for trans people and people in the LGBT community, that we don't like remove joy from our lives in an effort to boycott too much, because like joy sustains activism.
Yeah.
Like if we're all miserable all the time, we're going to feel exhausted and angry all the time. We're not going to keep going with activism. So I do think that's where also there's this like gray line and gray area of like, well, what trade-offs am I making? Because if I'm going to remove too much,
yeah,
I'm not going to have the space or energy to do things that I need to do to support my community. So yeah,
that resonates. I totally agree. I had a past guest who was talking about climate activism, and his words that either I paraphrased or he said, but they stick with me nonetheless.
The vibe was there.
Yeah. He said, despair is not a strategy for getting out of a problem. And I was like, oh, that is dead ass. you are correct. But joy fuels is kind of a corollary.
Joy is what keeps people going.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes survival possible. So if you have, for people in the queer community that have a really intense or like deep-rooted relationship with Harry Potter and those novels, I think that it's fine to keep them. But do make trade-offs. Like, do think about what other media you can consume, like where you're going to draw that line.
Like, could you find joy doing something else?
Right.
Have the thought, you know. If you're experiencing a bout of insomnia, it's 1 a.m. You can't go hang out with a friend. You know, you're not trying to go out to the bar or whatever. You know, stream the movie. But if it's you know, a Friday, someone's trying to hang out with you, and instead you're like, oh, I'd really rather stay home and watch Harry Potter. Go hang out with your friends. Like, go experience real life with people.
Like, don't theme the event after it, but if you don't need to like cut it out entirely.
Oh, interesting. Do you participate in ethical consumption, or like as a philosophy? Do you have like a philosophical underpinning for your capitalism?
To the best of my ability, yes. I will say I don't research every company that I buy from.
No.
Right, like I know people that go to that length, but if I catch wind and like, you know, stories surface, I'll try to be more thoughtful. I think Chick-fil-A is a great example.
Oh my God, the way people come at me over Chick-fil-A.
Do you love it? Do you hate it?
I am not interested. I am not
Neither
interested in Chick-fil-A. I mean, but years ago, I was talking about it, and someone was like, do not come for God's chicken. And I was like, girl.
You can miss me with that. Yeah, exactly. No. I think that's a great example. Like, you're not going to see me eating there.
Yeah.
Literally anything else. But there are certain, I think, stories and like novels and books that like I said earlier, I think you can, do they belong to the author once they're out in the wild, or do they belong to the readers? So I think that's a little bit different than something like a corporation or
Well, let's explore that question a little bit more, because I've got book series. I would love to switch.
Okay.
I was obviously voracious reader, obviously in that fantasy area. Like A Song of Ice and Fire, the George R.R. Martin books, which that series is not finished, right? But the TV series has finished. Does this unfinished story belong to me or into the community, let's say? Or does just the finished version belong to us? You know, like how do you navigate unfinished pieces of art?
I've not run into that situation. In the art that I guess you could make arguments of I also really enjoy Lord of the Rings. So there are
Yeah.
like unfinished books, but I think that's a difficult one. I would lean back to like the facet that the original story was written in versus like reinterpretations of it. Because when you're watching a movie, you are watching like the director's version. Like there, and when you're reading a story, there's more for you to imagine yourself and connect with, and like read between the lines. There's more analysis that could happen there. I think film majors would probably argue that that's not right, but
they're like, boo.
yeah, maybe. But I think I would lean towards the unfinished story being yours. What do you think?
Well, I think this is just a question that comes when you adopt the separation of the art versus the artist.
Yeah.
It's like if a painter is midway through something and then suddenly I find out they're Nazi, I'm like, oh, I'm out. I there are no works of art by Nazis that I like.
No. I think that's why this argument gets so convoluted, because it really does boil down to the individual person's relationship with the work of art as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And like, does removing it cause you harm?
Yeah. And I think just like the capacity question with consumption, I think it's like, well, can I just go to a different museum? Can I just like, am I in a small town with one small gallery, or I'm in a larger area where there's a museum next door? I'm like, oh, I'll just go to that one. Do I have choices? Am I in a place in my life where I have the option to do what I would call better, but we can just say it's to do differently, to even make a choice in general, really. Because to take an extreme example, I can think about families, like children in particular. Let's say either like queer children who are in super small southern towns who have to watch like church.
I didn't know what you were going to say.
It's like
watch what?
Until you are like out and independent and can live your own life on your own terms, you're probably not going to be like, church sucks.
Right.
Church sucks because the preacher said that I'm going to hell. Because then your parents are like, well, what do you mean? Oh,
right.
I'm going to give you the boot, or I'm going to send you to a conversion therapy or something. And so I want you to have agency to make the choice that you're going to make. And I want you to have as much joy as you can in whatever your situation is.
Yeah. I think if there are Harry Potter fans that are looking for something similar, you should probably start with Lord of the Rings if you haven't already. Okay. I think J.K. Rowling stole a lot from those stories.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you could argue like...
There's an old wizard.
Yep, there definitely is. Yeah, there's the Voldemort Sauron situation. There's like large talking giant spiders. There's like everything that happens in Harry Potter can be like reasonably traced back to Lord of the Rings. Like Ron, Hermione, Harry are similar to the hobbits. They're young children. The hobbits are just short in size. Like there's a lot better articulations of this theory than what I'm doing right now. I'm not sure I'm doing it justice, but I think if I have thought many times that if I had experienced Lord of the Rings first and not Harry Potter, would I care at all? Because Harry Potter I have such a nostalgic tie to, and I didn't really dive into Lord of the Rings until my early 30s. So
are there trans undertones? Is there trans subtext in Lord of the Rings in the way that you found it in Harry Potter?
No, not quite. But
do better.
They do.
Lord of the Rings author Tolkien.
He does use queer as a verb a lot, which I really appreciate. So he doesn't shy away from that language. And then like, I think the bond between Frodo and Sam is often depicted as like very, like maybe crossing the line in between like lovers or just like a very intense male friendship that you don't normally see in like straight communities.
Oh, that's fair. That's interesting. I do want to leave the heterosexuals with intense friendships because I think they need those.
Straight men are just, come on, make some friends.
Make
You'll
some
be okay.
friends. Okay, you know what? If a lonely straight man is like, will you watch Harry Potter with me? Fine.
Fine. I will
rather
lecture
watch
the
Lord
whole
of the
time.
Rings.
No. Either one, you're going to hear me talk over it.
I'll just keep my mouth full of popcorn. But for someone else, you know, I'm like trying to consider the depth of my conviction. You know, like easy for me to just go in another direction. But if someone were sad and they're like, oh,
this is my one comfort movie.
You know, I have no other channels. I'm like, I guess if that's what we're gonna do. But going back to go, please.
Oh,
please.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna ask you about Lord of the Rings smut, so really, you go ahead.
I don't know. I don't know if I've ever gotten into that. Maybe I'll write it down. But I was gonna just like, I think even in this conversation, you can see that I like waver back and forth sometimes when it comes to Harry Potter. Like, it's not an uncomplicated viewpoint for sure.
Well, you love a gray area. You said it yourself.
Yeah.
And you're nostalgic. What is the earliest book or series that you recall reading?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I think one of the, if I'm going to stick on Harry Potter, I was already, when the first book came out, I must have been like, I could do the math, but I'm going to round and say probably 7 or 8, somewhere in there.
Okay.
Somewhere close to 10, not quite. And I was like far beyond as a reader to be reading things aloud to my mom, but my mom also like badly wanted to read Harry Potter but didn't want to do it herself, so she made me read the first 2 books aloud to her.
So there was audiobook.
Also yes in later years I realized I was pronouncing everything incorrectly, but you know, say la vie. So there's also like, I think, memories where I was irritated at the time, but it ended up being like kind of a bonding moment for my mom and I, since I had like sat at our kitchen table begrudgingly reading aloud the first 2 Harry Potter books to her.
That is very special.
Yeah, so there's like different things woven in and out of that.
Yeah.
Beyond just like word choice and language and like fantasy. I don't know my earliest memory. I wish I could.
That's okay.
Remember.
That's a lovely, lovely memory, and I'm glad you have that. Like,
yeah.
And
it's funny, you know, how angry I was at the time. Like, having to read it out loud. Like, God, Mom, I'm old enough to read by myself. Like, just like having a little fit nonstop about it.
Okay. That's what you remember. Do you have the chance to talk about this with your mom ever? Is that still on the table?
About Harry Potter?
About the memory of you reading the books.
Yeah, we laugh about it sometimes.
Okay.
I mean, she only knows up to the 2nd book because she's not much of a reader. So she was always, she's like, yeah, that's as far as I got because you stopped reading them aloud. So we have a banter around it, I think, at this point.
Yeah. I'm glad she stopped. I'm not going to encourage her to read any more books.
At least there's some balance in the family, right? Like,
yeah. But if she were to say, hey, Bayleigh, you know, would you read those 2 books to me again? I'm like, Bayleigh, you got to read the books to your mom. That's so sweet, Bayleigh.
I think there'd be a little bit of a logistical challenge there. It's a significant amount of time.
But that's just, it's just yet another exception. Like in the way that you said, oh, look at me, I'm waffling back and forth on
Yep.
on it. I'm like, so am I. I can easily make up circumstance. So I'm like, oh well, it's okay then. Yeah, it's fine then, because the stakes feel low on the consumption, but what she's doing is actively hurtful. But
yes,
I don't know if I don't think you're contributing to the hurt when you consume the media, particularly the old media. I think that maybe the older you go, the better.
Right. And I think you made a comment about the library. Like it would also, not only could you go to the library, there's different like audiobook apps you don't have to buy the old stuff either. Like if anyone that I know was like, could I like borrow your audiobooks? I'd be like, yeah, here's my Audible login. Like, go for it. Or, or like get a library card and rent them there. Like, you don't have to buy the old things either. Like, so I know that there is kind of a resurgence happening of physical media and people wanting that back into their lives, but there's a way to go about it without like buying it again.
We don't plug a lot of things on this podcast, but the Libby app.
Oh,
so
wonderful. Yeah. So good.
I'm a new convert to the Libby app. I would just be like, oh, I'll just
so am I. My partner, like over the holiday, like November, December, was like, why haven't you downloaded this yet? Like, get with it. Because I was like doing Audible credits monthly. And we're like, no. And so we've moved over.
My husband was very similar. He was like, I told you to get this years ago.
Like, what's the what's the holdup? Yeah.
I definitely regret it. And what really put me over is that I was starting to buy like ebooks because I don't need the paperback of my like trashy science fiction books. I don't need it. I really love the Brandon Sanderson's books, and I will get the hardcover versions of the Stormlight Archive books every time. I will pre-order, just bring it to my house. But if it's like some Margaret Weiss, Tracy Hickman, Dragonlance novel or something, I'm like, oh, let's put it on my tablet.
There is a bookstore in Austin that does like an LGBT book club, and so the books that I buy are usually the book club books because they're all like queer centric, and like that tends to be the physical books that I'll buy nowadays.
What's the name of the bookstore?
Little Gay Shop.
Okay, it's right there in the name.
Side.
Okay.
Yep. Loud and proud. But they do also called Little Gay Book Club. And it's
I love that.
Same. It's been a blast.
There are listeners in Austin, so you guys should consider going to Little Gay Bookstore. Little Gay Shop.
Yep. If you join the book club, you might see me there.
Oh, that'd be nice. Real community.
Yeah.
If you go and you see Bayleigh, what I want you to do is I want you to ask Bayleigh to read you the first 2 Harry Potter books. We got to create more memories. It's just the same memory over and over and over again.
That's just going to be the book club now. It's just me reading aloud.
I would live stream. Yeah.
Need to like brush up on my theater chops if I'm going to do that.
Okay. I mean,
I say that like I was ever in theater.
I was going to say, we've talked enough about Harry Potter. Tell me about your time in theater. Was it show tunes? Were you a dramatic actor?
I wasn't. I was in band. They were at the same time.
Fair.
I'm just dramatic because of who I am as a person.
I love that about you. I did spot the instruments in the background. So do you play the banjo?
I got the banjo. In our, COVID is going to last 2 weeks time. And so there's a couple different methods to playing the banjo. There's the picks, which I have.
Okay.
So I can do some songs. I will say after about halfway through 2021, I was like, this is hard.
That's okay.
So I can, we're still doing a novice banjo, but I can play chords and like a few tunes.
I'm glad you tried something new. It brought you joy for a little while, and then when it stopped bringing you joy, you made a different choice.
Yeah. It's
there
now
you go.
A decoration.
Well, Bayleigh, thank you for hopping onto the pod and chatting with me about Harry Potter, ethical consumption under capitalism.
Light topics.
Separating the art versus the author. We probably should have spent more time on smut, but in a future episode, I hope you'll come back, and we can get down and dirty in it. See what's on Tumblr. I don't know. I don't even know anymore.
Oh, Tumblr. I'm trying to remember. I probably still have an active one somewhere. I don't remember shutting that down ever.
Were you writing on there?
Oh, most definitely.
Oh, you should find it.
Yeah, that'll be the prerequisite to the next episode. Okay. I just read my Tumblr aloud. Yeah.
We'll go through all of your old ramblings.
from 16 to 19, preferably.
It'll be my most listened to podcast.
Unfortunately. Yeah, for me.
Thank you, Bayleigh.